This time last year, I was halfway around the world in South Korea at the Pyeongchang Peace Forum, a gathering of world leaders and thinkers committed to forging and sustaining global peace. But this year, COVID-19 has forced us to find another way to connect with these incredible minds. Since I can't go to the Peace Forum, I'm heading to our ABC studio to bring the Peace Forum to me. Today we're talking about one of the greatest points of tension on the planet, the stalemate between North and South Korea and the nuclear threat of Kim Jong-un's regime.
When Kim Jong-un took over from Kim Jong-il, his father, I think there were thoughts that since he was a young man who'd studied over in Switzerland, and he was a huge basketball fan, Michael Jordan was his hero, the thought that he'd seen the world very completely different than his father, that maybe he would open up the country and maybe change some of the freedoms within North Korea. But then apparently what developed was that that leader also felt perhaps threatened from the outside world or from those from the inside.
Bob Woodruff is an ABC News correspondent who's been covering North Korea for over 2 decades. We now have a new administration in the United States with Biden. What do you think the future holds? And is peace possible between the two Koreas?
Every administration for the United States has attempted to bring some kind of peace between South Korea and North Korea, the U.S. and North Korea, but it has failed multiple times. Obama's administration made their attempts to bring some peace. And of course, then Vice President Biden was there on that team, and it did not work.
Reporting on such a closed and secretive country isn't easy, but it's an assignment journalists from around the world are determined to pursue.
North Korea keeps coming back up in the headlines. It's something that kind of goes away for a little bit, then it comes back a little bit. There's a lot of talk around it. I think there's a lot of talk around it because there's so much mystery, because we're not able to really go into the country and visit it in a way that we're able to report in other stories.
Ronnie Polidoro is a former ABC News producer who traveled to North Korea as part of Bob Woodruff's reporting team.
You are very much shown militant operations every single time a journalist goes there. It is something that shouldn't be overlooked, and it's something that we should be, following up on and reporting on.
Across the globe, there are 2 big conflict areas: the Middle East, including Israel, and North and South Korea in Northeast Asia. So we want to lay out the fabric for peace. We want to build the infrastructure for peace.
Choi Moon-Soon is the governor of Gangwon, the South Korean province that shares a border with the North. He helped to establish the Pyeongchang Peace Forum after the 2018 Olympic Games in an effort to push for peace on the Korean peninsula.
In the past, politicians have tried to resolve the denuclearization issue in one shot on the leadership level. But I believe we should begin with small engagements and non-political items, and then we can grow these items to address bigger issues.
North Korea's leadership wants to prevent any stimulation from the external world. They want to maintain the status quo, but I believe this will ultimately pose a threat to North Korea.
Jeon In-suk is a host for Korea's KBS News and has traveled to North Korea for his reporting.
21 years ago, there was a lot of fear, but not anymore. The North Korean people are more willing to answer our questions, so there's been a significant change in the attitudes of the North Korean people. They can't express their thoughts freely, but at least you can feel what they're thinking.
The people inside North Korea have access to information as they never did before. So people on the countrysides 30 years ago, 20 years ago, had no idea what the outside world looked like and didn't really understand that they were the most poor country in all of Asia and parts of really the entire world. But now they start to know that. So the thought has been that Kim Jong-un knows the reality, that he cannot continue the same kind of policies as his predecessors had, his father and his grandfather. So it may be a matter of time where eventually there will be some kinds of negotiations to end this conflict. And I think North Korea sees a very wealthy China to its west and a very wealthy South Korea to the south. And they realized they too need to give their people that someday. There are fears that there could be some kind of uprising eventually in North Korea. Things would change so quickly if North Korea finally opens up to the West. I mean, many people think that North Korea will be the place where investors are going to want to pour into.
One such investor is the American businessman Jim Rogers. I met him in 2020 on the border of the DMZ separating the North and South.
This peninsula is going to be the single most exciting place in the world.
1 year later, he's still bullish on the prospect of a unified Korea.
I'm still extremely optimistic. Now, the last year has been a little bit strange and unique, as you know. The virus has closed down most of the world. It could close North Korea completely, from what I read. So, of course, that's made huge changes, but I'm still very optimistic. As far as I can tell, the Korean Peninsula is going to be the single most exciting place in the world once the 38th parallel opens. You have cheap, disciplined, educated labor in the north with lots of natural resources. In the south, you have huge amounts of capital and manufacturing ability and marketing ability. You put together 80 million people on the Chinese border. It's going to be a very exciting place.
North Korea wants to maintain their confidence. They don't want to show that they're going through economic hardship. They don't want to show that they're poor, and they don't want us to pity them. When we talk to the North Korean people, we need to make sure that we're conscious of their dignity and confidence, because it's very important to them. We shouldn't just focus on our own standard. We have to try to understand their position. Of course, it can be frustrating, but we have to consider where they're coming from.
Pyeongchang is the name of this city. Korean syllables have their own meaning. Pyeong means peace, Chang means prosperity. If we put them together, it means peace and prosperity. Gangwon province was hit the hardest during the Korean War. There were a lot of people who lost their lives, and of course, because of that, there was a lot of fierce anger in this region. But throughout our 70 years of history, the anger changed to love, intolerance, and inclusiveness, because we realized that kind of sentiment is better than anger. We're at the very forefront of the division, but at the same time, we feel that we're at the forefront of the peace as well. We hope that such acknowledgement and such lessons learned will be shared with the international community.